What if I told you that 85% of people battle the same invisible enemy every single day, and it's not what you think? It's the voice inside your head telling you you're not enough. Today, we're going to silence it forever. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. We live in an era of unprecedented comfort and connection. Yet feelings of frustration, anxiety, and exhaustion have penetrated deeper into our daily experience than ever before. How often do you wake up with a clouded mind, questioning yourself, wondering if anything you do truly matters? Your internal dialogue may be filled with harsh self-judgment. This isn't a sign of weakness, and you're far from alone. Research reveals that up to 85% of people struggle with diminished self-worth and destructive inner dialogue, regardless of how confident they appear outwardly. Have you observed how these silent thoughts lead you to miss opportunities, shy away from challenges, or withdraw from others? How can we escape this pattern of quiet self-sabotage? Stoic philosophy, particularly through Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, provides a roadmap not merely to recognize but to master, transform, and ultimately liberate ourselves from the constraints of our own thinking. Stay with me through this entire video because you won't just discover solutions for your internal struggles, you'll unlock a pathway toward a life defined by clarity, resilience, and genuine inner peace. Understanding the nature of negative thought patterns is essential. These patterns can fuel social anxiety, depression, chronic stress, and diminished self-esteem. The foundation for change lies in understanding your current thought processes, identifying the problems they create, and then implementing strategies to either transform those thoughts or reduce their influence. You may have never labeled them as negative thoughts explicitly, but you've certainly heard that familiar internal voice. "I'm certain I'll fail at this. I don't measure up. Nobody genuinely values me." These become default narratives, repetitive and quietly influential, gradually persuading you that your value is limited and that positive outcomes are reserved for others. Have you considered why these thoughts persist so stubbornly? Negative thoughts aren't merely temporary clouds passing overhead. They rapidly become an underlying layer in your consciousness, influencing everything you feel and every decision you make. You awaken already feeling burdened, approaching each new day through a filter that dims every experience. You might attempt to dismiss it, but then even minor incidents can unleash the cascade again: a colleague's disapproving expression, an email left unanswered, or simply unusual silence from someone important to you. Dr. Rachel Goldman, a clinical psychologist at NYU School of Medicine, explains it clearly: our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all interconnected. Therefore, our thoughts directly impact how we feel and what we do. While everyone experiences unhelpful thoughts occasionally, knowing how to handle them when they surface prevents them from dictating the course of our day. Thoughts, feelings, and actions are deeply connected. When a negative cycle begins, it rapidly extends into every domain of your life. You experience anxiety, lose drive, avoid possibilities, or unintentionally drain the energy of people you care about. Consider this straightforward but powerful example: your child encounters trouble at school. Rather than approaching the situation with curiosity about the circumstances, you immediately blame yourself as an inadequate parent. "It's my fault, I'm failing," or you blame external factors. "My child got in trouble because of that teacher." In both scenarios, negative emotions control your interpretation and reaction rather than allowing you to choose your response intentionally. This is precisely what Stoic philosophy addressed over 2 millennia ago. Epictetus famously stated, "Men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them." The issue doesn't originate in external circumstances. It originates in your perspective and the narrative you construct internally. If you believe everything happens because you're inadequate or that others consistently oppose you, you'll remain confined by the bitterness of your own thinking. But when you pause, acknowledge the stream of thoughts flowing through your consciousness, and ask yourself, is this actually true? Does it always happen this way? Could there be an alternative perspective? You've already begun to forge a new path for yourself. This isn't simple, but it represents the first step toward reclaiming authority over your life. When you recognize that negative thoughts aren't objective truth, you become less severe with yourself and begin learning to adjust your perspective. Perhaps you're imperfect. Nobody is perfect. But you absolutely possess the right to select a different approach, a fresh way of thinking, a more compassionate beginning for tomorrow. Sometimes every significant transformation originates from that precise moment, the moment you realize you're not a powerless victim of your thoughts but someone capable of observing them, adjusting them, and finally releasing yourself from the burden of what no longer benefits you. Tracing the roots of negative thinking reveals important insights. Have you found yourself thinking, "I can't do anything properly," or "I'm simply not good enough"? These represent classic examples of destructive self-dialogue, a quiet yet persistent habit that silently undermines our confidence and mental wellness day after day. Nearly everyone has experienced this at some point. What's particularly troubling is how many individuals spend their entire lives listening to these small voices without awareness, until they gradually solidify into unshakable beliefs. Can you recall the last time someone declared you weren't good enough? Perhaps it was just you repeating those words internally each time you stumbled. These seeds of doubt and insecurity rarely emerge from nothing. They're planted early, maybe by an overly critical family member, a careless remark from an educator, subtle comparisons to more accomplished people, or a failure that made you feel excluded. Society constantly establishes standards, expectations, and definitions of success. Each time you fall short, another layer is added to the barrier separating you from your authentic self. Over time, as these messages repeat sufficiently, they transform into habits. When you hear or tell yourself daily, "I'm inadequate," or "I'll just fail again," that belief becomes more influential than any external encouragement you might receive. Like background music you barely notice, these phrases replay in your mind whenever you face new challenges, making you fearful, hesitant, or unable to envision possibilities. They become automatic responses. You anticipate failure before taking action. This is catastrophizing, when a minor error in a presentation is magnified into complete career collapse. This is overgeneralization, when one job rejection convinces you you'll always fail. This is binary thinking, when every mistake is immediately categorized as total failure. In truth, the deepest cause isn't what appears on the surface but what psychologist Carl Jung termed the unconscious. Many negative beliefs form in those shadowy regions that have never been articulated, memories, emotions, wounds you believed you'd forgotten but which still exert tremendous influence over you. They quietly determine how you think, feel, and behave, like tinted lenses coloring every life experience. What's the solution? First, acknowledge the existence of these negative voices. Not to combat them, but to understand their origin. Practice observing yourself. When a self-critical thought emerges, ask, "Is this thought genuinely true? Where did it originate? Is there evidence supporting the opposite?" Gradually, you'll discover that what you once accepted as truth is often simply a mental habit. Once you clearly see the foundation, you can choose to cultivate a different approach, understanding, self-compassion, and patience. Marcus Aurelius once stated, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about selecting a conscious, thoughtful response. Gently remind yourself that you aren't defined by past events. You are someone who can choose new ways of thinking and acting in the present. This marks the beginning of freedom and embodies the very essence of Stoicism, using reason to understand yourself so you can courageously step out of the invisible shadow that negative thinking has cast over you for too long. Renewing your mindset requires intentional effort. The Apostle Paul wrote in Romans 12 verse 2 about transformation through the renewal of the mind. Many people assume that once life transforms, the mind will follow. Actually, it works in reverse. Most of us entered this world head first. If you want to emerge from difficult circumstances, career limitations, or personal stagnation, your head must come out first. Let's be direct. Have you truly listened to how your inner voice addresses you? If your thoughts were spoken aloud, would you want anyone to hear them? My mind constantly operates. Some thoughts serve a purpose, perhaps even help. Others, frankly, do not. My internal dialogue often swirls with criticism, regret, and subtle forms of self-defeat that exhaust you before the day begins. Nonsense. Why did I say that? I mentally slap myself in frustration. Did she just ignore me? A surge of anger quickly followed by quiet fear of being forgotten. That could be an excellent blog concept. Or maybe it's ridiculous. The internal debate commences. I want to, but I'm uncertain I possess what it takes. Who do I think I am anyway? Round and round it continues. If this resonates, you're not alone. It's mentally exhausting. So how do we break free? How do we genuinely renew our minds, not superficially? Too often we're instructed to think positive, as if placing a cheerful sticker over our doubts will repair the foundation. But Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, would have disagreed. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's not merely an inspirational quote. It's a wake-up call. Real power resides in how you direct your thoughts, not in controlling external circumstances or denying uncomfortable feelings. The process begins with awareness, a willingness to pause and examine without judgment what's actually playing in your mental soundtrack. When a negative thought surfaces, don't immediately accept it as truth. Instead, ask, is this factually accurate, or does this thought serve me, or is it just replaying old fears? You might be surprised how many assumptions dissolve when you examine them closely. But awareness alone isn't sufficient. We must become architects of our internal dialogue. This means choosing what we expose our minds to daily, the books you read, conversations you engage in, art you experience, and time you dedicate to meditation or quiet reflection. All these become raw materials for your next thought. Just as Marcus Aurelius maintained his meditations as daily discipline, you can journal your way toward clarity, catching yourself in self-criticism and gently redirecting your focus. Try this for 1 week. Document your most frequent negative thoughts. Don't judge them. Simply observe. Then for each one ask, what evidence supports this? Or, if a friend expressed this thought, what would I tell them? With practice, you'll recognize that not every thought deserves your attention, much less your belief. Renewing your mind isn't a single moment of revelation. It's a habit, a series of small, conscious choices. The more you practice, the less influence those old automatic scripts will hold over you. As you change the narrative you tell yourself, you create space for something new, courage, clarity, and even a quiet form of self-respect that nobody else can grant or remove. Perhaps today is the day to let your head emerge first. Everything else will follow. Surrounding yourself with positivity creates profound change. Most people will say you're unrealistic to try. Find those who say you'd be unrealistic not to. That quote from Jenny Blake isn't merely clever, it's a quiet truth many overlook until life becomes overwhelming, cluttered, and isolating. We spend countless hours reacting to work demands, headlines, and the opinions and moods of others, as if our environment were simply a backdrop rather than a decisive force. But consider this, the people you allow close, the spaces you inhabit, and the messages you invite into your mind represent some of the greatest forces shaping your inner reality. Your thoughts don't exist in isolation. They grow, take root, and multiply in the soil you prepare for them, whether consciously or unconsciously. You've experienced it, haven't you? That subtle drag after spending time with someone who only perceives obstacles, who doubts every idea before it forms. Maybe you've noticed how your aspirations shrink when you share them in environments that only echo back fear. The company we keep quietly trains us how to perceive ourselves. Seneca once advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. The wisdom is ancient yet more urgent than ever. Here's a truth too many ignore: the crowd around you isn't neutral. If you're consistently surrounded by cynics or chronic complainers, their words seep into you, feeding your doubts. But place yourself among people who see possibility, who believe in fresh starts, and you'll find their confidence is infectious. That's why successful individuals in every field intentionally seek optimistic, positive companions. Optimism is the foundation of self-trust and growth. It's where courage takes root and where genuine change begins. Positive people help you feel valued because they feel valued themselves. They freely offer respect and encouragement, never threatened by your ambition or progress. Their presence reminds you self-worth isn't a limited resource. In fact, it's the only thing that expands by being shared. When you hesitate, when you doubt, these are the individuals who remind you of your strengths and who challenge you to attempt things, not just once but repeatedly. Surround yourself with them and they'll tell you you'd be unrealistic not to try something bold or different. That in itself is an act of courage. I once addressed a room of real estate professionals about career success. When I introduced the concept of surrounding yourself with positive people, nearly everyone nodded in recognition. Afterward, several approached to share how this single practice had changed everything for them. In sales, rejection is routine and confidence is survival. The most successful agents weren't the luckiest but those who persisted, fueled partly by their circle of encouraging friends and colleagues. When you fail 5 times and still make the 6th call, that's not just determination. It's evidence of a mindset cultivated by the right company. This isn't limited to business. The influence of those around you shapes how you perceive every challenge, at home, at work, in moments of uncertainty. If your days are spent with skeptics, your hope will diminish. But walk with those who are hopeful and your burdens will feel lighter. It isn't only people either. The state of your environment, your home and digital life, reflects back into your mind. Decluttering your space, filtering toxic news, joining communities focused on growth, these aren't minor actions. They're practical ways to let your mind breathe, to invite the air and light it needs to flourish. So if you're serious about eliminating negative thinking, start here. Become intentional about who and what surrounds you. Choose the optimistic, the resilient, those who make you feel slightly braver simply by being in the same space. Seneca was right. And Jenny Blake's challenge is for all of us. Your environment isn't neutral. It's either lifting you or pulling you down. Take a moment to look around. Who do you allow close? What fills your mind? What kind of soil are you providing your thoughts to grow in? Share your experience in the comments. Who in your life has helped you become more positive or resilient? What changes have you made to your environment that brought more light and confidence? Let's learn from each other because positivity multiplies when shared. The power of words shapes your reality. Words are power. Words could be your power, as Mohammed Kartani from Toastmasters International said in 2015. How many times have you heard friends, family, or even yourself say something self-deprecating and laugh it off? We label ourselves idiots, losers, or worse, just to get a laugh or soften the sting of disappointment. Sometimes we talk about others carelessly too. Nobody seems to notice. Nobody stops to consider what these words are actually doing. It's become normalized, even acceptable, to tear yourself down publicly or mutter quiet insults at yourself in the mirror or under your breath when you make mistakes. You're so stupid. Why can't you get it right? I used to do this daily. If I missed a work deadline, my first thought was, typical, you'll never be enough. I didn't even realize I was narrating my life with words that worked against me, words that chipped away at my self-worth piece by piece. The more I did it, the more true it felt. Perhaps you know that feeling. Maybe you felt the sting of your own words echoing in your mind long after the moment passed. The words we use, especially those nobody else hears, shape how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. Words have power. They can heal, build up, encourage, and transform. They can also tear down and destroy. Sometimes a single word changes everything. The Bible expresses it simply and powerfully. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. Proverbs 16 verse 24. The tongue has the power of life and death. Proverbs 18 verse 21. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up. Ephesians 4 verse 29. But there's a paradox here. Most of us work hard to control our words around others, especially publicly. We encourage friends. We try to say the right thing to our children. Yet when we're alone, our self-talk often turns harsh, unforgiving, even cruel. Marcus Aurelius, writing nearly 2,000 years ago, understood this well. He believed mastering our words, both spoken and internal, was a fundamental act of self-discipline. He asked himself, is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? He trained himself not just to avoid harmful speech but to nurture a habit of honesty and compassion, especially toward himself. So what can you do? First, notice the tone of your inner voice. Next time you catch yourself with harsh words, pause. Would you say this to a struggling friend? If not, try shifting your self-talk to something more constructive. You don't have to fake positivity or pretend everything's perfect. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to yourself is, it's okay. You're learning. You can try again. Or perhaps for now you simply practice being silent, letting the moment pass without adding more self-criticism to the weight you already carry. Remember, whether spoken or silent, words carry weight. They can either be weapons or gentle hands guiding you forward. The truth is, words can be your power when you choose them carefully and when you learn to speak to yourself with the same courage and kindness you offer to those you love. That's how you begin to eliminate negative thinking, one word at a time. Awareness and letting go create freedom. Imagine your mind as a house with many rooms. Some are sunlit and welcoming, others dim and crowded with old, unwanted furniture. Sometimes you wander into a cluttered corner. There's a dusty box marked, not good enough, a chair labeled, they don't care about me, a cracked mirror reflecting memories you'd rather forget. It's easy, almost automatic, to get trapped in those rooms, to sit among old echoes and call them home. But here's a truth Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics remind us, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. The house is not you. You are the one walking through it, able to pause in any doorway, to turn on a light, to decide which room you linger in. This awareness, the gentle space between the thought and the one observing, holds quiet, transformative power. You might remember Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time. On the outside, a legend. On the inside, there were years when his mind was his fiercest opponent. In interviews, Phelps shared how he felt suffocated by negative thoughts, self-doubt, guilt, the endless loop of, I'm not enough. What helped him begin healing wasn't silencing those thoughts but recognizing he didn't have to believe everything his mind told him. He started talking about his struggles, writing them down, opening up to others. In that act of witnessing, of bringing shadows into light, he began reclaiming his peace. That's the heart of the practice, creating space. When a harsh thought appears, you'll always fail, you don't deserve better, pause. Notice it. Instead of reacting or fighting it, just acknowledge, that's just a thought. Naming it breaks the spell. Suddenly, you're no longer caught in its grip. You're simply observing, not absorbing. Try this. When worries crowd your mind, grab a pen and write them out. Don't edit or judge. Just let them spill onto the page. The act of writing turns what feels overwhelming into something you can see and hold. If you're comfortable, share your fears with a trusted friend or even say them aloud to yourself. Simple acknowledgement is powerful. It lifts the weight, turns anxiety into something more manageable, and reminds you you're not alone. And then let's discuss letting go, perhaps the hardest lesson of all. Many of us carry the past like a backpack full of stones, regrets, betrayals, old arguments, the pain of not forgiving ourselves or others. But as Epictetus said, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. To let go isn't to pretend the past didn't matter, but to decide it no longer gets to dictate your life. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate act of courage, choosing to stop the story of pain so you can finally step into the present. It's a process, not a one-time event. Some days the thoughts will be louder. On others, you'll feel the space between you and them grow wider, lighter. Each time you notice without judgment, each time you let a thought pass without following it, you're clearing a little more room for peace, for clarity, for possibility. If this resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in these words, know you're not alone on this journey. Give yourself the gift of awareness. Practice letting go a little at a time. And if you found value in this conversation, please like and subscribe. Stay connected, because every step you take in transforming your thoughts is a step toward the freedom and inner strength you deserve. Stillness provides the foundation for transformation. I am certain you don't need further convincing that you need some level of what I'm describing here. Whenever I share this topic with others, they all say, "Oh, I really need that in my life. Where should I start?" Perhaps you've asked yourself the same question. Have you noticed that even in the quietest places, a silent room, a corner of the park at dawn, your mind can still feel tangled and chaotic? That's because true stillness isn't the absence of outside noise. It's an inner quiet. We grow up surrounded by endless reminders of busyness and productivity. Almost without realizing it, we come to see simply sitting still with ourselves as a luxury, even something to fear. I used to be that way too. There were days when I ran from my own emotions, filling every empty moment with work, my phone, or meaningless conversations just to avoid facing inner turmoil. But the more I tried to avoid it, the louder the noise inside became. Then I read in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, people look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the coast, or in the hills. There is nowhere that a person can find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own mind. So constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourself. That line was a sobering reminder. Stillness is a choice, not a circumstance. So how do you truly step into that space of stillness? You don't need advanced techniques. You don't have to clear everything away. All you need is to practice sitting quietly, taking a deep breath, and observing the stream of thoughts passing through your mind without trying to control or judge them. Try sitting still for 5 minutes, noticing every thought that comes up, good, bad, silly, fearful, and simply watch them drift by like clouds. At first, the silence might make you uncomfortable. Old memories, anxieties about the future, or unfinished stories may rise up and make you restless. But if you're patient enough, you'll realize when you stop trying to fix, explain, or run away, everything inside you begins to settle. What is the true effect of inner stillness? It isn't just a fleeting sense of relief. You'll find your mind becoming clearer, like a calm lake after rain. The things that used to easily frustrate you or sweep you away, a criticism, bad news, sudden pressure, no longer have the power to tilt your whole day. You feel a quiet strength, calm enough to face and handle whatever comes your way, but no longer at its mercy. That is the greatest gift of stillness. You reclaim mastery over yourself right in the midst of life's chaos. And perhaps it's precisely when you dare to sit with your mind, Dare to watch every stream of thought without running away, that you discover something profound. What's been controlling you all along is simply the habit of distraction and reaction. When you change that habit, you open up a new possibility for yourself, the ability to consciously direct your attention to what truly matters. That is also the subject of the next section. Directing your attention determines your brain's development. Every moment, the flow of your thoughts and emotions, sensations and desires, along with all your conscious and unconscious processes, shapes your nervous system just as water slowly carves deep grooves and eventually ravines into a hillside. Your brain is constantly changing its structure. The only question is, will it change for the better or for the worse? Have you noticed that whatever you think about most becomes a habit of the mind? Whether it's anxiety, fear, self-blame, or feelings of gratitude, your attention acts as both a spotlight and a vacuum cleaner. It illuminates something and then quietly pulls it deep inside you. Scientists call this experience-dependent neuroplasticity, meaning your brain is reshaped by exactly what you repeatedly focus on each day. The more you dwell on something, the more your brain builds pathways for it, and the easier it becomes to get stuck in that loop. Let me tell you about Carl. Every morning, Carl jumped out of bed with a long list of worries racing through his mind: overdue projects, unpaid bills, the latest argument with his wife. His entire day seemed controlled by a silent stream of negative voices. He fixated on mistakes, shortcomings, and the feeling that he was always falling behind. At first, Carl thought he was just being realistic, that he needed to stay vigilant to avoid repeating failures. But the more he focused on the negative, the more exhausted he became, the quicker he was to lose his temper, and he could no longer recognize simple moments of joy in life. One day, after a conversation with a colleague about Stoic philosophy, Carl tried observing himself more closely. He started realizing, I can't control every thought, but I can choose what is worthy of my attention. He set himself a small challenge. Whenever his mind spiraled into negativity, he would pause, take a deep breath, and redirect his attention towards something healthy, like watching his child laugh, acknowledging a small effort he'd made that day, or simply feeling the cool breeze on his cheek. Carl didn't pretend everything was okay. He just stopped fertilizing toxic thoughts. This wasn't an overnight change. Sometimes Carl was still swept away by old habits, still lost in worry. But he realized each time he focused on something positive, no matter how small, he was building a new path in his brain. Day by day, little by little, Carl began experiencing life with more lightness, initiative, and peace. William James once wrote, "The education of attention would be the education par excellence." Indeed, mastering your attention, choosing where to place it, keeping it there, and having the courage to shift it away from distractions, is the key to transforming your brain and your life. You don't have to pretend everything is fine. You only need to repeat one thing: choose what is worthy for you to nurture. Repeat it every day. The greatest changes begin with the smallest shifts you practice today. Overcoming negative thinking is not something that happens overnight. It is a daily journey, recognizing recurring thoughts, observing them mindfully, intentionally redirecting your focus, and learning to let go of what no longer serves your growth. Through each topic covered in today's video, from understanding the roots of negative thinking and recognizing the invisible impacts of habits and the past, to renewing your mindset, surrounding yourself with positivity, practicing Stoic actions, and learning how to transform your perceptions, you have glimpsed the path to living each day with greater clarity and strength. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoic philosophers remind you, you are not imprisoned by your mind. You have the power to choose. Peace begins the moment you take charge of your attention, practice stillness, engage in positive self-talk, and find the courage to forgive the past, to forgive yourself, and to forgive others. Your mind is like a garden, and every thought and action each day is a seed you plant. How have you overcome negative spirals in your own life? What made you realize it was time to change? Share your experiences or questions in the comments below. Your story might just become the inspiration someone else needs. Stay tuned for the next videos so you won't miss out on this journey with Stoic philosophy. Your journey is only just beginning.